All right, let's talk about building an engine. Give me your top 3 tips for
Mm.
building an engine.
So, having been through the process of creating, we have a course, obviously, of course we do, called Endless Engine. And I didn't write the programming for that. My head coach did, CJ. The bird's eye view of building an engine is you probably need to add monostructural accessory work to your training.
What's
So
that
that
mean?
means monostructural being like you're doing one movement, whether it's running, biking, rowing, ski erg, something like that, and doing that at a specific pace for a long period of time. That's very broad brushstroke of how to get a better engine. If we just go to CrossFit gyms and do these 8 to 15 minute metcons with all kinds of different equipment and transitions and stuff like that, you will build an engine. But if you're truly trying to focus on building a cardio engine that's going to make you better in those workouts, you need to take some time outside of the gym or take some time outside of class and do longer monostructural pieces. We're talking, at least 20, but probably 30 to 60-minute sessions where you're trying to maintain a specific pace. So a lot of times what we do is we have athletes set a pace for their max 2K row time. So the fastest 2K row they can possibly manage. And then we're going to be doing a row pacing off of that benchmark and saying, all right, let's say you can row 2,000-meter row at 2 minutes per 500. Okay. In training, we're going to be doing a lot of interval work with 2 minutes, 5 seconds per 500. And you're going to be doing a lot of repeats with that shorter duration. Or maybe you're going to be doing repeats at 155 per 500, where we're upping the intensity and we're doing shorter pieces, not full 2K rows. And then we're going to have longer pieces where we're going for 30, 40 minutes at a much slower pace, but forcing you to hold on to that pace for an extended period of time. And I know with Katie, my girlfriend, she does ultra marathons. She is doing a lot of pace based runs where she is trying to run at a 9-minute mile pace for 12 miles or something like that. And that's going to help her prepare for her 100-mile races in the future. So those are some very big, broad brushstrokes. But the bottom line for most people listening is that you're probably not doing enough monostructural work outside of the gym. It could be something as simple as having a rower or a bike or something where you can watch TV and do extended sessions or go into John Woolley's basement and hit his skier or hit whatever machines he has down there and doing single monostructural pieces for longer periods of time with a specific pace in mind.
Yep. It's funny, I had written my top 3 tips, so we're still on tip 1. You
Yeah,
can
that was just one big tip.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. Here's my top tip. Swear to God. I literally wrote out, you gotta work in longer increments, so mix it up, bike, run, row, ski. That was my top tip.
Mhm.
And I think you're spot on. I think you have to just pick something and just go do it. So, like, now you can't go do the CrossFit 5K because it's not gonna be long enough. That's the problem. It's not a 5K. But yeah, for me, it's usually the biker because I can sit on that thing for 60 minutes. But if I'm gonna row, same thing, like 30 to 40. The I don't like the ski erg as much, but what I will do is I have all the machines, right? So I'll do assault runner and ski erg, and I'll run for 2 minutes, ski erg for 1, run for 2, ski for 1, and I'll do that for 60 minutes, just back and forth. And again, it's not like I'm not sprinting, or and sometimes I'll even mix it up where I'll go at a light jog for 2 minutes and then I'll sprint on the ski erg for 1 and then light jog for 2 and sprint for 1 and do that for 40 minutes. Just enough to keep kind of that long endurance. You should be soaked when you're done, but not so exhausted that you can't go do something else. That makes sense. And that's how I've always viewed it. And I've been doing that now for probably a couple of years in at this point. And I think
Probably why you're good at a lot of engine workouts. You're
well, yeah, I mean, probably. I mean, it's funny, someone actually messaged me this morning and because I had mentioned on a different show that I really focused on capacity over intensity. And they're like, "I don't know what that means." And so this is what I was trying to explain to them. It's like, I don't do a lot of 15 minutes or less. I do them some, and I can go to that red line if I have to. I just hate that feeling. I just absolutely hate it, but I can do it. And my sprinting has never suffered. Like I can still like when the open comes around or I have to get in a competitive situation like that time I crushed you in the row, like something like that. It's I can do it, but I don't like to do it on a regular basis. And truthfully, like that's where I've always found like where I get the most tweaks and injuries is from moving too quick without good deliberate form. And then a longer kind of endurance thing, I can be more methodical around what I'm doing. My only caution is you have to mix it up. If you go, all right, I'm just going to go run long runs 4 days a week, then just go be a runner because you're probably going to have knee problems, ankle problems. Like you're going to start running into all that, or you need to at least do runner's mobility. You follow what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I mean, running is something that, I mean, certainly it can help you build your engine and doing that pacing work, like, especially if you have like a fancy watch
yeah,
like
yeah,
I do, you can see what your pace is as you're running and try to maintain that, whether you're doing it based on your heart rate or based on your pace, you can really manage that and you'll start to see benefits pretty quickly. It's like, wow, the the mile repeats that I'm running or the 800-meter repeats that I'm running are becoming more and more bearable because I'm used to holding that pace
yep,
for a long period of time. It's not like the classic CrossFitter that starts out really fast and then just by the end they're
right,
dragging, which is my typical scenario back when I didn't do hardly any engine training. But if you can vary the pieces of equipment, you're just gonna get banged up less. That's
yeah, yeah,
why, like, in our engine program, like, that's what we do is we're alternating between rowing, biking, and running, right? We're running once a week, we're biking once a week, we're rowing once a week, and that just allows you to not have any overuse issues and less shin splints, things like that, but it's still you're building that capacity across different different things, and actually something that I talked about recently with someone is there are some amazing, like, ultra marathoners where they actually bike way more than they run because once you have that running capacity to just purely build your engine, a bike is a great low impact way to build it, get the heart rate up for an extended period of time, get your miles in, but you're not just beating the crap out of your feet
right.
and your knees.
Yeah, swimming too, if you like to swim.
Absolutely, swimming, as long as you don't swimming for me immediately is zone 5. It's just
Yeah,
panic, trying not to drown.
dude, this is a true story. I tried to swim a year or so ago, a couple years ago. It's like, all right, I'm getting older. I need some low impact. I'm gonna go swim. Start swimming. Go buy all the stuff. Now I didn't get speedos, so I'm just gonna wear
Oh,
trunks. But I
that's
know
what you're missing, dude.
I probably,
Did
but
you
you know,
shave your legs?
no. But I had the goggles, and I'm like, I'm gonna go down. We got a Olympic sized pool here in my community. I'm gonna go swim. So I get out there, and it is full, and I mean full of old people. It's like old people soup, and I know I'm old, but they're way older than me. And I get in the pool, and this little old lady, I mean, she had to be in her 80s, just comes blowing past me in the water like I
Yep.
am dog paddling. I'm like, "I am done. My ego cannot handle this." She crushed me, like, absolutely crushed me. I'm like, "This sucks. I don't wanna take the time to learn this."
Yep.
So I just that was the last time I swam. I'm like, "I'm done."
Yeah, swimming, just like a lot of these things, there's skill involved. There's there's technique, and unless you practice the time to learn the technique, swimming is one where you like if you just go out and swim a bunch, you're probably just reinforcing terrible
Yep.
technique over and over and over. So that yeah, I don't do much swimming, and it's a goal of mine. At some point, I will take time to properly learn how to swim so that I'm less embarrassing in the pool. But for now, I won't.
Yeah, me either. Alright, next tip. What's your second tip?
Oh man. Well, actually, that would be my second tip is the technique aspect. Most people, when they view something like ring muscle ups and handstand walks and stuff like that, they're like, oh, there's got to be some technique to make this work for me. But when they're running, when they're rowing, when they're biking, when they're ski or when they're swimming, they're like, oh, you just do it, right? Wrong. learning the technique of running, learning where to have the weight on your feet, where to have your torso positioned as you run, the technique of how to set up the bike properly so that you're using the right muscles and not just completely blowing up your quads, the technique on how to ski erg properly, which I hardly know. It's really important to focus on the technique as well because having good technique, just like with all these gymnastic movements and barbell movements, proper technique on these monostructural movements will help you get all of the energy out of it that you put into it. If you have inefficient rowing form, or if you're a very inefficient runner, which admittedly, like I'm a pretty inefficient runner, I probably work twice as hard to run a mile than Katie does as an ultra marathoner, or a lot of people who know how to actually run. I'm probably doing twice as much work and not getting as much benefit out of it. So spending the time to actually learn the technique for each implement you're using and really be a student of it will help you build that engine because you're going to be getting the same the effort that you put in, you'll get the rewards out of it.
Yeah. I'm always amused when our thoughts are similar. I'm a huge proponent of having a run coach. Huge proponent. My second topic or second tip was you need to sprint some, so track work's important.
Mhm.
And it was my run coach that taught me that. Like it was kind of the same thing you were describing with the rower where you go out and do intervals. I think people often think of running, like, I don't need a coach for this, just put my shoes on and go, you
Right.
know? And this guy would get us out on the track and we do 200, 400, 600 with specific uh, amount of rest in between, and he'd be videoing us doing pose running, and would literally run with a metronome. Like, we'd
Yep.
put in headphones, and we had this metronome app, so no music. It's literally just a click.
Yep. Can help you get
And,
into the zone with the right pace.
oh, man, you wanna, like, really have your mind numbed, run with the metronome.
No,
Like, but
that's
it
terrible.
but it's brilliant for a couple of reasons because it does teach you pacing. And that's one of the hardest things for people to learn early on, and once you get really good at it, you can almost do it without a watch.
Right.
And then over time, I figured out where my pace was, and then I could find songs in that same time signature or the in the, you
Same
know,
beats per minute.
same
Yep.
beats per minute, and I would program those into my run track, and when I'd go run, I'd run at that pace and just listen to the music and just run on the beat. But I do think that track work's super important or the interval work that you were describing, so it doesn't just have to be on the track. I know it sounds like I was hating on running earlier, but I really wasn't. I think you just have to be constantly varied, and that's where the interval work comes in. So
Yep.
it's kind of the balance of, I'm gonna put in 30 to 40 minutes, but it's okay to say it's gonna be in 2-minute increments with a minute in between each one and
Yep.
still get your total time. It helps your body understand the duress it's gonna be through for that long period of time and build that engine you're gonna need to sustain it. And what I found from doing that, like, he had me doing this interval work for, if I'm remembering right, 4 months. We were training for a half marathon or for a marathon, but it was a relay, and I was gonna run the 7.5 mile leg. Now, I had never run farther than 3 miles in my entire life,
Mhm.
and during that 4 months, he never had me run farther than 3 miles, not
Right.
even one time. We did interval training, so literally, I show up on game day, and I look at him, I'm like, "Bro, I don't know how I'm gonna do this. I have
Right. Because
never
you've
run
never
s."
run that distance
Yeah.
before.
He's like, "You'll be fine." And I literally did negative splits all the way through the final mile. My final mile was like 7 minutes and 15 seconds or
That's
something.
awesome.
My first mile was like 8:30,
Yep.
and I was just getting progressively faster as I went,
Yep.
and I felt great, and I couldn't believe it. Like, when it was done, I'm like, "Dude, are you magic? Like, how did you figure this out?" And he's like, "We just built the capacity over time through
Yep.
doing the
And
interval work."
I've mentioned it a few times, but like again, if we look at the longest runners in the world, they can go run 200 plus miles unbroken. They're not doing that during training, right? They're doing smaller increments consistently and varying their pace. And that helps build that capacity for those very, very long efforts on game day. You don't always have to go full send, full game day every day.
I'm not running 7-minute miles now, by the way, not even close. When we did Murph back in the spring, I did a 7:30 on the first mile, and
Shoo.
I nearly died,
Yeah.
nearly died.
That's tough, especially with that. Was it weighted? Did you have your vest on or
God, no. God,
no?
no.
Okay.
No, no, no. I wanted to test my run. Like, I'd been working on running and I was getting better, and I'm like, "All right, and our mile at Chagrin Falls CrossFit, the half mile is downhill and the half mile back is uphill.
Oh,
And Tom was at the bottom of the hill, and I took off. I'm leading the pack, obviously, because I'm running way too fast. And I get to the bottom of the hill and I high five Tom and I look at my watch and it literally says 3 minutes, 15 seconds. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, cause I've run enough to know I was screwed at that point. I'm like, I
yep.
am so screwed. And so I significantly slowed down coming back up the hill. And that was all she wrote. It was not a good rest of the workout.
And I think that's what that, I guess, tip number 3, we're gonna continue this,
Yep.
is understand pacing, which kind of it is similar to what I mentioned for tip number 1, but when you actually start practicing with a specific pace in mind, and it's not, as CrossFitters, we have a tendency, especially more beginner CrossFitters, it's like, I'm going to put in 100% effort. And then your body eventually will throttle that naturally because you can't put in any more effort and you crash and burn, especially if the workout has any duration to it. But if you watch the best CrossFitters that have ever done it, Froning, Frazier, Tiatomi, they were masters at pacing perfectly so that the beginning of their workout looked exactly like the end of the workout, or they actually would go faster at the end of the workout. They had those negative splits you were talking about, which means each round gets a little bit faster. And that's something that with engine work, when you actually start training with a pace in mind, whether that's on the rower, skier, bike, or actually running and tracking with your watch, you start to get familiar with those pacing strategies. And then it actually really does carry over to CrossFit very well because you understand, wow, this pace, I can hold this for 15 minutes. And if the workout's 30 minutes, you know that your pace is probably far too fast. So you learn how to throttle that pace in relation to the workout that you're doing. And the people who get the best scores in CrossFit, whether it's as a scaled athlete all the way up to the elitist of the elite CrossFit, it's the people who are able to manage their pace properly so that they never fall off in the middle of a workout, ideally. They're able to maintain that pace and then even speed up towards the end. That's the key. We saw this actually at the CrossFit Games. If you watch Helena, that workout, there were several athletes and a few of them were like more games beginners where they did that first round. You're like, wow, they're going to win. Look at them crushing everyone in their heat. They're absolutely destroying everybody. And then by the end, 2 more rounds, they followed off because they just ran way too fast. They came out way too hot. But it's the people who are consistent. They ended up doing negative splits, and they were the ones that had the best score in the workout.
So once again, Ben, we're of the same mind. I went at it from a little different tack. I said measure and track your heart rate, which for me is basically the same thing. So
Okay.
I wear this stupid Apple Ultra, and it'll actually tell you what zone you're in. Like literally say zone 2, zone 3, zone 4, whatever. And you can actually tell it you can customize your zones based on your age. So you can actually it comes preloaded, but you can change it to whatever you want it to be. So for me, I use that. I wear the watch religiously in my workouts and measure my heart rate to determine, to your point, if my pacing's good. Because like if you're doing a running workout, like I know what those paces should be. I know what my PR mile time is, so I know I should be running 8.5 minute miles in a workout and not blow my heart rate up, and I'll be fine, or whatever your pace is. But when you're in a workout that doesn't have running and it's barbell and pull ups and air squats, or the things that really blow you up in a wad are wall balls, double unders, thrusters, like compound movements. For me, I use my heart rate to determine where I should be taking breaks. So if I can keep my heart rate somewhere between 135 and 150, I can keep working. Once I cross 150, the breaks come far more frequently. And that's the secret is like of determining when you're going to take breaks. For me, it's always that heart rate. If I can keep my heart rate down, I can work longer, work harder, continue to move, continue to score points or reps or however you're viewing it in a workout. But once I cross that range, then it's like, all right, you got to take some breaks and let it come back down into a kind of a workable zone. And
Mhm.
then there is that red line zone that you're looking for too. Like you're always trying to, in CrossFit, always trying to push that heart rate right to the edge, but not so far that you can't work. And that's a different number for everyone. And that's the point of why you have to measure and track and really look at it workout over workout over workout to understand where is that point for you. Because for me, like I said, it's like 150 is about right at that edge for me. For you, it could be 170. You're younger, fitter, questionable, but you're younger, fitter. So your heart rate's different. And it would be different for women, younger and older, and men and
Training
teens. And
history. Yep.
yeah, all of that. Athletes, like if you're like your girlfriend, Ben wasn't just flexing by the way that he has a girlfriend when he mentioned she's an athlete. Like
So flexing.
your girlfriend, well, you're still flexing, but she's a world class athlete, right? World class. And I would venture a very smartly educated guess that her heart rate's wildly different than my old ass.
Oh,
You know?
we did a trail run the other day. It was a recovery run. I'm putting
Right.
this in air quotes for everyone listening because never have I ever done a recovery run because running tends to make me tight and it's always very hard for me. Anyway, it was like 3.79 miles because I tracked it because I was so proud of myself. But we were talking about heart rates while we were running. And of course, we're holding the conversation the whole time. And I was actually holding a conversation, didn't feel that bad. But I looked down at my watch and I'm like, I'm at 178 right now for my heart rate. What are you at? She's like, 127. It's like,
Right.
oh my gosh. So, and that just shows that it is something that you can train, right? If I ran a bunch and I got my technique better and I actually did that longer endurance engine building stuff, eventually you're going to see that I'm going to be able to hold a similar pace, a conversational pace. And rather than being at 178 or whatever I was, I'll probably start getting into the
Yep.
160s and then the 150s. And it's slowly but surely, as you build that engine, it requires your body less effort to go at that speed.
Yeah, it'll allow you to really understand the differences that are going on in your body. I had a similar experience. So I would do Sunday run club at the gym, and one of my coaches leads it. And this is like the fittest woman that I've ever worked out with. Like she's crazy fit and she's a great runner, like really great runner. And we ran slow run club, like it's decent distance. I think we only ran 4 miles that day, and we were doing like 10-minute miles. So it's like kind of a lightish jog for her particularly, but really kind of for all of us. And when I got back, I looked at my watch and it said my average heart rate was like 155 or something. I'm like, why was it so high? And she looked at me, she's like, we were talking the whole time. Of course it was. You were gasping for breath because we were literally talking the entire time.
Yep.
And it hadn't really occurred to me, but that was a learning lesson for me that it does change how you're taking in oxygen during the run, which in turn changes how that oxygen gets to your muscles to help you to pull through this. And so it's why I think it's important to track it and really understand what's going on is it will help you through so many different workouts over time to really understand what your body's reacting to. So
Mhm.
look at us, Ben. Look at us.
Hey,
Who would have
look at
thought?
us.
Who would have thought? Just
Who'd have thought? Not me.
of the same. And I'd point out you paid CJ for this. I just gave it to you for free. So you're the one wasting money out there.